generations have torn down barriers, built bridges of unity, and defied those who have sought to pull us apart. Ladies and gentlemen, let's play ball.
In a recorded message ahead of the game tonight, Trump sent his thoughts and prayers to Congressman Steve Scalise, who was shot and critically injured while practicing for the game yesterday. The president called the Louisiana Republican a patriot and a true fighter. Trump also urged everyone to embrace unity. We're just learning that Georgia Governor Nathan Deal says 2 escaped prisoners have been caught following a car chase in Tennessee. Inmates Donnie Russell Rowe and Ricky DuBose are accused of killing 2 prison guards. The American college student medically evacuated from North Korea is suffering from a major brain injury. Dr. Daniel Cantor of the University of Cincinnati Medical Center adds there's no evidence of North Korea's claim that Otto Warmbier had botulism, which led to him falling into a coma.
We performed electromyography and nerve conduction studies. Those tests did not reveal any evidence of active or chronic denervation, nor any repetitive stimulation that would suggest active botulism at this time.
President Trump is lashing out at reports that he's under investigation for obstruction of justice. The president tweeted this morning that, quote, they made up a phony collusion with a Russian story, found 0 proof, so now they go for obstruction of justice on the phony story. Nice. Meanwhile, Vice President Mike Pence now has a lawyer because of the Russia probe. The pilot of a blimp that crashed today near the site of the U.S. Open is recovering at a Wisconsin hospital. This is reporter Mike Heller.
There was only one known injury, and that was to the pilot, who's being treated for unknown injuries. No other people involved in the incident.
The Penn Fed Credit Union blimp was over the golf course before it crashed to the ground. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
So you missed the health care deadline and don't have any form of health care? Liberty Health Share has the answer. Liberty Health Share offers an affordable health care option that allows Americans to enroll any time of the year. Even if you've already enrolled but are not satisfied with your choice, you can switch to Liberty Health Share today. Liberty Health Share allows Americans to control, manage, and direct their health care by allowing them to choose any doctor or hospital across the country, yet still be in good standing with the Affordable Care Act. So members are exempt from the tax penalty and mandates imposed on those without health care insurance, giving you freedom from insurance. Memberships are for individuals, couples, and families, offering a variety of options to best suit an individual's medical needs. If you're a freedom-loving American looking for contract-free health care, then this is for you. For more information on how to enroll any time of the year, call 855-585-4237, 855-585-4237, or visit libertyhealthshare.org to request a free estimate. Not available in Pennsylvania.
This is KCAA.
Live from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful downtown San Bernardino, California. Thanks for tuning into the Waterzone today. Good afternoon, I'm Rob Starr, along with Mr. Mike Barron, also known around here as Mikeypedia, and we are collectively known as the Water Boys. You missed your cue, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's a hot day.
I was so mesmerized by your amazing voice on the radio.
Well, thanks to our great engineer Carlos, who told us it was starting, and we didn't see it until he's waving frantically. So thank you, Carlos. We owe a lot to you. Anyway, we're going to go right to the news, and we have our favorite person, the purveyor of Maven's Notebook, Miss Chris Austin. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Very well, very well. Thank you. Well, I heard that the state of California, through the person, I guess that's the second in charge, or what do they call that? The chief of staff for Governor Jerry Brown, announced that it's time to make a decision on the big fix. What have you heard about this?
Oh, well, this is actually not entirely new, but we are getting close to a decision point. And actually, last Friday, the biological opinions were expected to be put out, and they still haven't come out, which is interesting. But the final biological opinions then kicks off a decision on the environmental documents, and once that happens, then it becomes time for all the water agencies to pretty much either say they're on board or not, which means Metropolitan plus all the other state water project contractors. So, and it's been expected that it's going to be in September, but again, that timeline was sort of based on those biological opinions being completed, and now they're just about a week overdue. We're having some issues with that because there's some things at the federal agency level, some positions that Trump still hasn't filled yet, appointed positions. So it's kind of been slowing things up at the federal agency. So the delay on the biological opinions could just be, bureaucratic red tape stuff. Or maybe it's something other than that. Who knows?
Well, it's a $15 billion investment. And do you know if the state of California is looking for the water agencies themselves that are going to, well, basically it's the water agencies that make up the membership of Metropolitan Water District. Are they going to basically carry the full burden of that $15 billion price tag? Do you know?
Well, the water agencies are expected to pay for the tunnels, and it's not in Metropolitan. It would be 50% of that, but there are other state water project contractors that make up the other 50. The second largest is Kern County Water Agency. They're in at 29%, so figure 30%. And the big issue there is, there's no question that the people in Southern California can't afford to pay for the tunnels. No one likes their water rates to go up, but Metropolitan has said that they imagine it's going to be $5 per household will be what it will cost, and even if it's twice that, $10, I mean, still spread out over Southern California, that's not a problem. The problem is with the agencies like Kern County Water Agency, which is primarily agriculture. And the question then becomes, that's an input to a product, right? And the cost is going to be considerably more per acre foot to water their crops, like $300 per acre foot more, I think, is what they're talking, which is significantly more expensive than water has been before. So the big question has always been, can ag pay? Well, also, and I have to clarify something. The state water project is only roughly half of the water, half of the contractors that would be paying for this. So Metropolitan would be paying. The state water project is half. Metropolitan would be paying, half of that. So it's only about $3.75 billion for Metropolitan.
I think they spent that much on the turf removal program, if you ask me. Well, maybe not quite that much.
Hey, I heard that the state's ordering some assessments to be done on dams, on 50 dams.
Yeah, other reports have said there's, more, up to 74. But, yeah, it's not really surprising in the wake of Oroville Dam and what happened. But it's interesting to note its estimated number, I think, of dams in California is about 1,200. So what they're ordering inspections on is just a fraction, really. And really all dams could be checked. And I think there's, work going on across America in light of this to check out dams. But so far, 74 dams, or between 50 and 74, depending on whose report you're reading.
They probably had an assessment of which ones they should check first. Hey, I noticed that our good friend, Miss Mary Ann Dickinson, has been named leader of the California Water Efficiency Partnership.
Which is the former California Urban Water Conservation Council that we're familiar with. But
they've renamed themselves. I think you had it, Bob. Its name escapes me.
Yeah.
What was that name?
Efficiency Partnership. The California Water Urban Conservation. That big long name is now that Water Efficiency Partnership.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Well, that's good. She's a nice lady.
Well,
and she's certainly knowledgeable.
Well, she was the executive director of the CUWCC for a number of years before she founded the Alliance for Water Efficiency. So bringing those two organizations together, I think, will be great. Just be a louder voice in the arena of water policy.
Absolutely.
Well, is there any other significant water issue that is top of mind for you, Chris, that you want to share with our audience?
Well, besides just sitting around waiting to see what happens with the tunnels, the Bureau of Reclamation is going to be starting some public meetings. They're talking, they want to restore salmon runs above Shasta Dam, which is quite a project because they're not going to build fish passage at Shasta Dam, so they're going to have to truck the fish around Shasta Dam when they come back. And then they'll swim up into these upper streams, they'll spawn, and then they actually have a device that they put in the river that catches those salmon, baby salmon, when they come down so they can put them in a truck and take them down to below the dam.
Who's going to create the map for them? So they know where to swim.
I don't know. It's a requirement of the biological opinions to look at this, and the concern is that the water temperatures are too warm lower down, downstream, so the upper elevations will have the cooler temperatures that the fish need. And it's not just Shasta Dam; they're talking about doing this on the Yuba River too. But I don't know, this idea of trucking fish around the dam and catching them as they come down, we'll have to see how that works.
Well,
hey,
manhandled by humans.
Well, the United States put a man on the moon in 1969. We sure as well ought to be able to in California make sure that those salmon get a nice ride to their final destination.
Absolutely.
Well, Chris, thank you so much. We've got an interesting interview with Randy Record, who's been chairman of Metropolitan Water District, been chairman and on the board of Eastern Municipal Water District, and is very involved with his family in terms of farming. And I guess right now it's grapes.
Yep.
In was it the Paso Robles?
San Jacinto.
Is he on next?
Yes, he's on next.
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, he's going to be on the panel, I believe, that I'm going to be moderating on the 29th down there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Before I come down to your show, the Chino Basin event. So.
He's great. So if you get a chance, you can call in or listen in on the internet. And we just thank you again, Chris, for keeping us posted on the big water fix and all other issues around water in California.
And anybody who wants to help sponsor that, it's www.mavensnotebook.com. It's a great read, great blog, and Chris is a wonderful lady. Chris, stick around. You can listen to Randy. So we're going to take a little break, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, take care, guys.
Okay.
This is Brooke's yard, and Brooke loves spending time with her kids. What she doesn't love are the ugly bare spots in her lawn. That's why Brooke uses Scott's Easy Seed. Unlike seed alone, with proper care, Easy Seed's all-in-one growing solution grows grass anywhere. The first time, guaranteed. This is a Scott's yard. Pick up Scott's Easy Seed today.
Welcome back to the Water Zone with Mike and Rob, and we have a great guest today. His name is Randy Record, and we caught up with him the other day, and had the whole group from the Water Zone was there, Ingy and Paul and Mike and myself, and great knowledge from this gentleman, and
I really enjoyed the fact that we looked at it from the Metropolitan Water District perspective. We looked at it from the ag perspective with his own involvement in his family's farm, and also at a regional water district.
Right.
So very interesting.
So that was good for everybody. So let's hear what he has to say.
Well, today's special guest is Mr. Randy Record, and a little background on him. He's the chair of the Metropolitan Water District's Board of Directors Executive Committee. He's a member of the Water Planning and Stewardship Committee, Finance and Insurance Committee, Engineering and Operations Committee, Legal and Claims Committee, Communications Legislation Committee, Organization, Personnel and Technology Committee, Audit and Ethics Committee, Special Committee on Bay Delta, Agriculture and Industry Relations Committee, Integrated Resource Planning Committee, and the Real Property and Asset Management Committee. So I'm sure that keeps him busy all day long aside from his normal job. So I'd like to welcome Randy to the show.
Thank you.
Randy, on a personal note, why is Randy Record involved with water, and when did it start? You're going back to your family's involvement and so forth.
Well, it's hard to farm in California and not be concerned about water, especially Southern California. So my family's been in the San Jacinto Valley for well over 100 years, been farming there for a long time. When I started farming in the mid-70s, we were using recycled water and well water. Imported water was pretty expensive, but we were very conscious of the limitations and what the supply opportunities were. My dad served on the Eastern Municipal Water District Board and the Met Board before I did. He decided not to run. People asked me to run, and so I did. I'm very glad I did. That was over 16 years ago. So it's been a great experience, and the people I've met have been phenomenal.
Well, just for our listening audience, about Metropolitan Water District, it's a regional wholesaler and the largest distributor of treated water in the U.S. It delivers water to 26 member public agencies, 14 cities, 11 municipal water districts, 1 county water authority, which in turn provides water to more than 19 million people in Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, and Ventura counties. They have an allotment of the Colorado River water, which they operate and perform maintenance as well as construction on the 242-mile Colorado Aqueduct, which runs from Lake Havasu to its endpoint at Lake Matthews in Riverside County. MWD owns and operates 16 hydroelectric facilities, which I didn't know about, and that's a lot, 5 water treatment facilities, of which 4 are among the 10 largest in the nation, 9 reservoirs, and 830 miles of large-scale pipes. So with all of that said, what still needs to be accomplished by Metropolitan Water District for assurance of future water for our customers?
2 things. We need improvements in the delivery system from Northern California, specifically in the Bay Delta. That infrastructure needs to be modernized. We need a more reliable supply, not an additional supply. We're not after more water from there, but we want to get what we used to get. And in order to do that, that 50-year-old system needs to be modernized. It doesn't protect the environment as it should in the Delta. The other part of that equation is we know there will be future growth in our service area on the coastal plain of Southern California. We intend to meet that demand with local projects. We're very aggressive in developing, subsidizing, and help fund local projects. The most recent is a pilot project that we're funding with LA County sanitation districts to take some of the water that's being discharged to the ocean, treat it, and then deliver it to groundwater basins in the Met service area. I think there's a great potential there. So it's water reliability on the imported side and local projects for future growth.
In Southern California, when it rains, and we've been lucky in the last couple months, but we believe that like 90%, at least that's the number of people bant around, of the water that rains here runs down the street and into the ocean. What do we do in the future? Is there any plans for more capture of that?
Certainly. Sites Reservoir, north of the Delta, is the latest. It's off stream, so it's pretty environmentally conscious and respectful. Metropolitan last month invested significant money in that to be a part of that project, even though we know without better conveyance through the Delta it'd be hard to access that water. We think it's important that we're involved statewide and let everyone know that we think that it's the big picture that's important. I think with climate change we're seeing that the extremes are greater and greater. We go from 5 years of record drought to record rainfall. And to me that means when you build infrastructure, you build it big, because it doesn't mean that it's going to be utilized at 100% of capacity all the time, but it means during those periods, like we've seen lately, where you have a lot of water and it's least harmful to the environment to pump that water, you have the capacity to do so. The Diamond Valley Lake in the Met Service area, not too far from my house in San Jacinto, is a perfect example. That, coupled with the inland feeder, which brings water from Lake Silverwood, was built way over capacity, so that when we have those supplies, we can fill immediately. DVL will be full by the end of August. It's pretty close right now. And over the last 3 years of drought, we've been steadily pulling that down. So it's operating just as it was designed. It'll get us through several drought years, but we have the ability to fill it in 1 year.
Oh. There's a lot of people talking about, I don't know if you know Curtis Paxton.
No.
He's doing some stuff in San Bernardino about desaling some water in the inland areas instead of by the ocean, because he believes, or they believe, there's a lot of unfresh or unclean water, and they're looking at starting some new inland desal plants to do that. Is there any potential of bad water within your territory as far as Metropolitan is concerned that they could harvest and clean up? And
certainly. I mean, Eastern is a great example of that. We have groundwater basins that are brackish. And you're right, most people think of seawater desalination, but I think there's way more potential for inland, because not all the population is on the coast. At Eastern, we've been able to access not only money from Metropolitan through their local projects program, but also Army Corps and the state of California to build desalter plants. And that does two things. It brings us a new reliable water supply of potable water, but it also cleans up a basin that's marginal and keeps that water from migrating to other basins that are of higher quality. They get pumped more for that reason. So we see that bad water migrating, and we're able to slow that down. It also helps with our salt management overall for the district. We recycle all of our water, and by nature, the recycling process adds some salt to that supply. So with our desalters, we're able to keep a salt balance within the district.
okay. If by some chance or miracle, which will never happen, that I become the czar of water for California, and I'm not looking for that job, if you had to take a look at, from your Met perspective, of the top 3 issues of water in the state, how would you prioritize those?
Well, I really think at this moment it's the lack of infrastructure. We have a lot of water in California, but we have more good quality farmland than we probably have water to use on it. But if we can't design infrastructure that protects the environment, then we're going to continually take water away from other uses in the name of the environment, which we all want, but it's not productive without the proper habitat to go along with it. So the infrastructure that's modernized, the habitat to go with that, and then I think just the ability to act as one state. I continually try to let people know that as a Southern California person, when I look at Northern California or the Sacramento Valley, I don't want the water you need. I want the water that you couldn't possibly use. You use your water, you store your water. There's water that's left. We want to make sure the environment has what it's need, and we'll take whatever's left over. And that gets us through. So I get concerned when I hear that through the last drought and one previous, a lot of people felt like Southern California had their water, and we weren't forced to cut back as much because we had that supply. But my thinking is, that wasn't your water. I mean, you took what you needed, and we took what was left. We've invested billions of dollars in infrastructure, including storage, so that we have that water during those times. So I don't want to take anybody's water away from them. I think that we have enough to go around if we use it in the right way, and we really respect each other in that regard.
Just a quick question. You said improvement of the infrastructure. I'm just curious, is it storage or conveyance or the age of the infrastructure, the pumping plants at Tracy, for example? I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Yes.
Specifically, you know, some of that infrastructure is built in the 1800s and is crumbling
right.
and such.
But more recently, and what we're focused on right now, is the Cal Water fix and the conveyance through the Delta, because that piece of that project was never completed. And that project's almost 50 years old, and we still have 15 years of debt payments to make on that project. So to me, it's like having a nice house with a bad roof, and you say, well, that's a little expensive, I'm not going to fix it. And I don't think that's appropriate. We got a big investment here that we need to continue to use, but like any system or anything else, it needs to be updated. I mean, you look at the technology advances that have happened all over our society, whether it's a smartphone or a car or you name it. A 50-year-old project certainly needs to be updated.
Right. I've been down inside the pumping facility in Tracy and seen that firsthand, and there's some stuff that looks like it was World War II surplus that they put down. You know, some of it, I'm exaggerating a bit, but some of it is pretty old.
Right. I think actually the pumping part of it maybe it's kept up better than other parts, but just as far as how we collect the water from where we pick it up and then how we move that through certain areas is what really needs to be.
Through the delta?
Yes. With climate change, with sea level rise, there's going to be issues there in the delta that you're not going to be able to just keep forcing fresh water through because the salt inundation can only go up.
Right.
It's one of the investments in the delta that you're speaking of include an island that MWD
yes.
recently purchased. Is that part of that plan?
Yes, actually 4 islands. We looked at that, and our board has not made a final decision on the twin tunnels, on the water fix. Mm-hmm. We've invested as a board about $60 million in the studies, so we're interested and we think it's the right thing to go, but until we actually see the final project, we can't say yes sense. Or no. But at that point in time, we knew that if the project was a go, these islands are strategic, and to be able to stage tunnel boring machines in strategic locations and have the ability to deal with the spoils would be really important. What we've seen from high-speed rail is a real difficulty in acquiring land that's critical to the project. What I told our board was that since we haven't made a decision on Cal Water Fix, look at it through the eyes of there is no twin tunnel project. To me, it's just as important because we need to find out what's going on there ourselves and why the estuary is in decline. We've done a lot of work in the Yolo bypass with rice growers and fish agencies to develop programs that provide food for fish that have been really productive. And we think we can do that on a larger scale on these islands that we own ourselves. We can also firsthand determine how much water is required to farm some of those islands. We've done long-term projects on tule restoration that reverses subsidence, reverses the oxidation of the soil, and we've seen the soil begin to come back. We're very optimistic about the potential for those islands because we've done a lot of work over the years. So it was a very strategic purchase, and whatever happens as far as water fix, I'm very happy that we have them.
Either way.
Do you find that the environmental community gives organizations like MET and others recognition for this, like you've expressed this sensitivity to having to make sure that yes, you're going to secure water, but it needs to be done with an understanding that the environment is key part of that solution. Is that understood as well as you think?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is take a step back, and I think what we've really learned firsthand the last 10 years is that you can't just say the environmental community and have a homogeneous makeup of that sort of a group, because there are true environmentalists that will work with anybody, and their goal is to improve the environment. There are other organizations or entities that see it as a method to stop growth or corporate ag or you name it. We have great relationships with organizations that really care about improving the environment, and they understand that people need food and people need water, but the environment's important. We've made investments all over the state in different projects that are dual purpose, co-equal goals. They help with a particular piece of the local environment and allow us a more reliable water supply. It's nothing new for us. We have some really good partners, There's some people that don't care for us, but to me, the ones that really have that goal in mind of being what an environmentalist, what you think should be, yeah, we get credit and we have good partnerships.
That's good to hear, because sometimes you hear just more of one side versus another side, and yet there's got to be a recognition that we're pretty much in it together.
Right.
It's not going to be just one side gets to do whatever they want.
In a world of sound bites, water's difficult, and it's hard to get down to the facts, and it takes some time, and it takes a desire by the person to want to be educated to really find out what's going on. It's not easy.
Yeah. Well, we've been speaking of this master wholesaler, the wholesaler Met, and Eastern Municipal Water District is one of the members of Met. You have that unique perspective of having participated, been active in both the large wholesaler activities as well as then the regional, if that's the correct term to use, for Eastern Municipal Water District. What is the most significant difference and also the most significant similarity, if there is one, between these two entities from a generic standpoint in terms of the focus of each organization?
Well, the most obvious difference is that Eastern is a retailer. We have 150,000 water customers and even more sewer customers. Met is strictly a wholesaler. Met only has 26 customers, and those are the member agencies. The similarities are we're dealing with water, and we're dealing with the environment, and we're supplying water to Southern California. Your voting ability lies in the value of the assessed valuation of your district. So Eastern's 2.9%. It's not very much. But it gives me a seat at the table as Eastern's representative, and I can make our case. And if I'm prepared and respectful and have a good argument that's listened to, I don't know how I have that without Metropolitan. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have half the state's population in our service area. And there's no way any one agency, even the big ones within Met, could have built the Colorado River Aqueduct or could be 50% of the state water project. We only get there by being part of a bigger organization. And to me, that is really valuable. Because I think Met gets listened to in Sacramento, I would have to think more than Eastern would on their own. And I believe in that partnership. It allows us to do a number of things that would be impossible without it.
Well, when you look at Eastern Municipal Water District, obviously I heard you talk about groundwater being a source of water, also imported water from Colorado River in Northern California. Are there other sources, I guess the reservoir, if there's storage, is there other sources of water that's significant to Eastern Municipal in terms of its ability to deliver water to its retail customers?
Those are the main ones. I mean, you have imported and then you have local supplies, which include groundwater, also brackish groundwater, which we talked about, but also recycled water. It's been interesting. I've been on the board this is my 17th year, and when I started, we were 80% reliant on imported water. Now we're down to about 55%. And that's been through the help of Metropolitan, but also Eastern's a progressive agency. It started way before my time. And they were at the forefront of doing water reclamation and then developing recycled systems and looking at every opportunity to use a local resource. And no two agencies at Metropolitan are the same. They all have a mix of local supplies and other opportunities, which makes it really unique and a really fascinating organization.
My perception is that Eastern Municipal Water District was an early adopter or one of the agencies in California that did transition to a water budget-based tiered rate system. Can you explain, one, is that a correct perception? And two, what was the objective of moving from a flat rate system to this tiered based system?
It is true. We were one of the first ones. Board pushed really hard to get that done. And it's not just differential rates. This is budget based. And so we want your information. We want to know how big your lot is, how many people live in your house, how much water you need, maybe not what you want, but what you need. And then we develop the different tiers and we give you a budget. We didn't know how it would work in a drought. And I like to think that this system was not to punish people that use a lot of water, but to reward people that like to conserve, because sometimes it's not possible to do that. So it worked pretty well, and we were very generous in giving people variances. If they came in and said, no, we've got 6 people in the house, fine, you got it. So when the state came down with us having to reduce our water use significantly, we were concerned because we'd already picked the low-hanging fruit. We'd already gotten down to 20 by 2020, way ahead of schedule. And what they wanted us to do was pretty significant. It was over 25%. But we immediately adjusted our rates as a board, a lot of public outreach, and we've come through this drought and our revenue stream has not been impacted. And people still have the water that they need. So we're very pleased with how that has worked. So, we always thought that the idea was there to make it work, but we never were tested until the last 5 years, and it worked really well.
I know in speaking with other water agencies, oftentimes the idea of interviewing or canvassing ratepayers and saying, do you have a problem with charging people who waste water a higher price for water? And typically no one has that complaint about that because no one ever thinks they're wasting water. But with a water budget, it certainly gives you a platform or a basis to which to compare what your actual use is to something that's more mathematically sound in terms of what you should be using if you're somewhat efficient.
Sure. Well, and it lines up with our supply opportunities, because if everyone used a minimal amount of water, maybe we could get by with just groundwater, local groundwater. But if you're going to use more than that, then each supply costs more money. Mm-hmm. So if you're one of the people that really like to use a lot of water and you don't mind paying for it, we're going to supply you the water that you want, but it's going to be expensive water. Mm-hmm. So I think it works. I'm willing to pay for it. I want it. I said, okay, we've got the supply, but it's expensive. So you're going to pay more for it. So I think in that regard, it's been very effective also.
I know Mountain View, Northern California, just announced a rate increase. I think they're at $10 per 100 cubic feet of water. So that's getting up there, at a high price. But you've avoided, Eastern Municipal Water District seems to have avoided something that several agencies are going through right now, that they did see a reduction in revenues as a result of reduction in water sales, and they're having to go back to the public and raise their rates.
Right.
You see, your agency has avoided that. Do you get inquiries about how your rate system works?
Sure. And I've offered to Metropolitan, to other member agencies, we're happy to show you what we did and make your own conclusions, but we think it worked. Here's the pitfalls, here's the strengths. But people, it's so easy to say, you asked me to cut back and I did, now you want more money because you don't have enough money.
Yeah.
Well, my thinking is, you're going to have to work a little harder than that to understand what we do. There's no business, I don't think, anywhere that pays people not to use their product. So how do you make that work from a revenue standpoint? So if I raise your rates, it's because I don't have an alternative. I charge you the lowest rate I can while having high quality water, a reliable water supply, as much as you want, anytime you want it. And whatever happens in the future, I can't predict that. But I'm going to make it as cheap as I can and as reliable as I can. And if it costs more, I'm going to expect you to pay more.
I think I've heard it said that water agencies in California have spoiled customers and retail customers for so many years that it kind of created this potential conflict in terms of the rates that are paid. But
I think you're right. A lot of people say that most people's water bill is less than their cable bill. For me, you can have 3 or 4 cocktails and probably spend as much as you would for a month's worth of water for your house and your yard. So I think water is a heck of a good deal.
Yeah, I would agree. And especially since it's available 24/7 and meets high quality standards.
That's right. And I also tell people, if you don't want us to raise your rates, think of water as roads. You're not going to have it every time you want it. You want to drive to LA from Riverside at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's going to take you 3 hours. You want to go at midnight? Take you an hour and 20 minutes. So that's your choice. We haven't done that with water. You have as much as you need whenever you want it. You never have to worry about the quality.
Yeah. I would add to that. I think to dovetail on something you said, Mike, the farming community has also delivered a high quality food supply that's safe, as the water purveyors in the state have done, and I think a lot of folks take that for granted as well. I mean, look at other countries and not only the food supply, but the quantity and the safety of that food is often.
You add sanitation, which Eastern. I mean, we're very fortunate.
I've read articles about waterborne pathogens in other parts of the world killing people every minute of every day. And we just don't, fortunately, thankfully, hear about that here.
Well, I have a friend that told me in this country, you cut your finger, you run over and put some water on it. The rest of the world, you wouldn't dare do that.
That's interesting. That's a very good, that's a good illustration.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, Eastern has done a great job during the drought and educating, same with Met, of educating their customers about water conservation, and the outreach was incredible. I know you're doing a program from Eastern on promoting water efficient landscapes with schools, and we happen to be lucky enough to participate with Eastern on one for Mead Valley Elementary School. And they have an educational garden and they grow crops and things, and we're working with the school district and Eastern to have that come true. Do you find it's easier teaching the kids, the younger kids, what to do versus the older kids or the adults?
I think it is. From personal experience, I kind of get tired of my second grade daughter coming home and telling me what I should or shouldn't be doing on a number of things. So those days are long gone, but I think that's a good example. When we decided, because of the governor's drought order, that we were going to invest over $400 million in turf replacement, I thought the first place we should go is to public agencies. Typically, they don't have the money to do that. That's where people learn. Those facilities are very visual. It's a win-win. We can help you change your landscape and really promote what the governor is asking us to do and really see some long-term benefits. So we were very aggressive in that. We have, I think, over 10 state and university schools in the Met service area. So that's a pretty big number right there that we can work on. And then you start adding up the public schools, elementary, high school. I mean, it's almost endless. So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, we see the county took advantage of that, both in Riverside and such, and fire departments and things, and it's saved them quite a bit of money. One project we did a couple of years ago with Riverside on one fire station saved a couple 100,000 gallons a year, which we were amazed at. Anyway, so let's move on to go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, how have you helped the farms in your service area conserve water? I know that wasn't part of Governor Brown's mandate, but...
No, and I wouldn't say that we've worked really hard. We're just starting down that path now on conservation in agriculture, but by nature, because we did import so much water, the water was too expensive for agriculture, and so that just meant that a lot of farmers couldn't afford it. So you're going to be pretty conservative in your water use under that scenario, but we made a conscious decision that we would recycle all of our water from our 4 treatment plants and try to keep that water within our service area. Sometimes when you have a rainy season, then you're going to have to discharge, but we've worked really hard to develop storage. But the key component is to make the price of the water affordable to agriculture. We like to price it lower than well water so that we can protect that groundwater that's potentially good potable water, replace that with recycled water. And I can very easily justify that the people that generate the sewage need to pay just a little bit more to develop that recycled water distribution system so that a farmer can afford the water. We're making best use of that resource that is started out as a waste, but we're also protecting our groundwater. And recycled water is pretty much drought proof. I mean, people cut back some, but people have cut back quite a bit in their homes, so there's not a lot of room for more conservation there. So our recycled flows are pretty stable.
And have there been any infrastructure improvements to provide water to farmers
Absolutely.
more on demand
Yes.
so that they can implement new technologies such as sprinklers or drip?
We've been going to the federal government for decades. Title 16, we've been able to access those funds on a cost share basis to help expand our recycle distribution system. So our 4 reclamation plants are all tied together. Lately, we've put tanks at high elevations so that we can provide pressurized water, which just opens up dramatically the uses. So now we have parks that are small scale, and wasn't feasible for them to have their own booster system to do that before. The pricing is all over the board. I mean, if it's on demand, then you're going to pay a lot more than the other way. So our cheapest water is for growers that are using large quantities that schedule their irrigations. Our most expensive are industry, and it's still cheaper than imported water. So we've got the gamut. We work very closely with our local park districts, valley-wide, and we are replacing potable water they're using on parks with recycled water.
These crops in your area there's been a lot of dryland farming, obviously, just driving around the area. But I know the nursery growers, there's some citrus and melons and vegetables. Where do you see most of this water going? Which crops?
Right now, the vegetables that are grown in the Eastern Service area are mainly potatoes and watermelons. When I started farming in the 70s, it was all secondary water, so it was just forage. And over the years, we've converted all our plants to tertiary treatment. And with chlorinated, you can use it on anything now. There's still, to me, some reluctance by big sellers of produce to use crops grown with recycled water. I think that's going to change. It has to, because I think a lot of the public is going to say, I want food grown in recycled water. I want you to save that potable water for me to drink with or use other ways, and theoretically helps keep the cost of my food down. So it's been I think we're going to go to more and more vegetables as, you know, with Sigma, with groundwater management now. That's really impacted a lot of what goes on in the Central Valley. We're very similar climate-wise to the Central Valley. We've seen carrots coming back to our valley lately, and I think we're going to see more of that as the acceptance of recycled water for irrigation improves.
I know in the Castroville area there's a system that's roughly 14,000 acres where they use recycled water for the farmers in that area, and it's been in operation close to 20 years. Designed by a Cal Poly Ag engineer, by the way, and there's a waiting list of folks to get that water. They don't use it on produce, leafy greens and such, but artichokes and anything else that's where water isn't going directly on the portion to be edible, and it's been successful for many years.
We have a waiting list for our ag water.
Interesting.
Recycled water, yes.
You mentioned Sigma. Tell us how that implementation is going, both from your hat here at Eastern Municipal and as well as owning a farm.
Well, I mean,
a big date is coming here in about a month, right?
And
deadline.
My farm is not in the Met Service area at this point, but it is the poster child for groundwater management, which is the Paso Robles Basin, and there's been a real strong effort to get some management in place and to form a water district. We haven't gotten there yet. Continue to work on that, but it's really important. That area is producing some really great food products, mainly wine, and it just doesn't make sense to not have a reliable supply. And I understand the idea that we don't need any more government, and we don't. If you just leave me alone, I'll be fine. But it just doesn't work, especially in California. It's too great of a place to live and farm and work, and so we've got to manage our resources and make best use of what's available. For Eastern, most of our groundwater basins are already adjudicated, so we're not really seeing much impacts from Sigma, but I mean, the Central Valley, it's a big deal.
Sure.
And I think it's plays a role in the water fix as well, because you just can't rely on that groundwater. But we've known that for a long time, but now we are really starting to manage it, and that's a good thing.
So your farm in Paso Robles, you need to join a coalition or a group to collectively manage your basin and report back up to the state? Is that how that works?
We had an effort, mainly led by growers, to form a district. There was a vote, and it went down pretty dramatically. So there's a new effort by the county to try to form some organizational structure in order to deal with what we need to deal with. And
also, in the meantime, you're reporting individually to the...
That hasn't started yet, but it's not that far away.
Yeah.
What was the main reason, do you think, for the negative vote? Was it just that sentiment that you expressed earlier that people don't want to...
Some of that, but I think there was some misinformation, and I think there's a fear of another level of regulation or management or fee collection or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I come from an area where we couldn't do what we do if this water district wasn't in place. But it's almost a unique water district, because even though we have a lot of urban population, we do care a lot about agriculture, and we make resources available to agriculture. It's not always true throughout the state. So I think there's just the idea that we don't need any more people to move here. We don't need any more wells drilled, and we'll be fine. And so how do you manage that? How do you make it fair? I mean, there are families in Paso Robles that have been there for 3 generations who always thought, well, someday we're going to quit cattle and we're going to drill a well, and I can't do it now. And there are people that moved there not too long ago that maybe got in under the wire, and what's fair? It's really difficult.
But one of the nice things about Sigma, from my understanding, is that it is locally managed, and only if you fail locally, then does the State Water Resources Control Board step in. So you have the opportunity to manage your own groundwater and only have additional regulations if you fail.
Right.
So it seems like people would opt to take that management step first.
Seems like it.
Sometimes logic does not prevail.
Yeah, it's hard. It's not easy. It really isn't. Yeah. But
well, farmers are sometimes, it's like herding cats, I think, trying to get them to agree on.
Actually, the farmers are very well united.
Oh, that's
from
good.
My perspective in Paso Robles, and
in the Central Valley, I'm not sure that you could say the same.
Well, I know.
We'll set that aside for.
I'm a farmer, but you kind of gotta laugh, you know. I mean, we think we're better than a lot of people because we work a lot harder or longer hours, and most people think, geez, why don't you work smarter and enjoy life, you know? And anytime farmers get together and say, well, you know, why don't we just all cut back? Then they all go out individually and plant more. So
that's because they think everybody else is going to cut back. They know supply and demand.
But you went into the wine business.
Yeah.
So that's kind of more fun.
But most growers I know, if you had a problem, they'd help you in a second, even though you're competitors. But so it's just an interesting profession. But California has so much potential with the climate, the soil, and we do have water. But you know, we just got to manage it right.
Have a lot of lawyers too, right? So
there's actually some people say not enough that are really schooled in water law.
Yeah,
that's true.
I had someone say, if you're going to have a son or daughter become a lawyer, just have them specialize in water rights, because you know they'll be permanently employed if they're anyway half decent.
or hydrology. We're going to be wanting to really measure our groundwater in the future, and we're just on the cusp of that.
Right.
Mike brought up in Rob as well the Record Family Wines. I want to know more about the winery and how much fun you're having with that, and your wife and your daughters are involved.
Where's the samples?
Where can we buy it? That's what.
Well, we're getting to that. I want to know a little bit of the history.
I'm happy to sell it to you. We're online mainly. We're not a winery. We're a vineyard.
Okay.
We have a local winery make wine for us. Only about way less than 5% of our grapes go to our own wine. I have one daughter that manages the vineyard and another daughter that does the marketing and compliance on the wine side. So we're and they're partners. So we're a woman-owned majority-owned business, which I'm very proud of. My family's been in farming for a long time, and there's nothing better than working with your kids and that next generation. So Paso Robles is a wonderful area, and so we feel very fortunate to be there and slowly getting to be part of the community, and it's really been great.
Your daughters both live on the vineyard?
One lives there and the other lives in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
So we have grandkids, and life is really good.
Yeah, grandkids nice. Are great. I can speak from experience. Yeah. Rob too.
And they get to see Grandpa and Mom and Dad out in the vineyard working. What a great thing to do. I grew up in a citrus ranch that my grandmother owned in Palma Valley, so I get a little bit of that with my grandmother and Mom and Dad and stuff for 3 generations out there. It's kind of fun.
Well, any closing thoughts or thoughts of wisdom that you can pass on to our listeners about water?
No, I just want people to know that there are great people working in water every day that are really dedicated to the right things. And, at Metropolitan, we serve mainly urbans. That's our charter. But we really want to see the state reach its full potential. And in order to do that, we need to make best use of our water supply. And that includes the environment. That's not taking it away from the environment, but it's done in the right way. So I kind of prefer that we thought of ourselves as one state, and we tried to really have true partnerships that are mutually beneficial, and that we don't rely on any single source of water, but we look at every opportunity, whether it's recycled or brackish groundwater or ocean desal or imported. Conservation. I mean, we're starting to think in terms of not just what's the best way to apply water on the farm, but going a step further and saying, what's the end product and how much water does it take for that? And maybe that's a new metric to determine how we go forward. My feeling is I don't want to tell anybody what to do, because as a farmer, that's the last thing I want somebody to do to me. But we need to be able to be smart and try to find a way to give people options that help everyone be better. So I'm optimistic. I mean, it feels so good to be out of that 5-year drought. The next one could start next year. We don't know, but it was nice to see it rain this year.
Absolutely. Well, on behalf of the team here at Waterzone, we would like to thank you for joining us today. And
it's my pleasure.
And let us know where we get your wine.
Online. Record Family.
Oh, that was a great guest.
Oh, he's so knowledgeable at multiple levels of the hierarchy of water distribution. He's a user of water, and it's great. And he just has a great mannerism, just
absolutely
very knowledgeable.
Glad he's at the helm.
You bet.
Anyway, everybody have a good week, and remember the most important thing you should do. There's lots of things like that, but think blue.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about angioprim. He said chelation helps remove